put it out there, but in IT and education, we have a lot of different systems to manage. So I think one of the key aspects, both from an IT perspective, but also really our customers, our end users, was to have something that was integrated. One of the biggest issues, for data quality and just also time management is, you have all these different systems where you're inputting, essentially the similar data. So having an integrated platform was really a key factor for us. And then of course, our main student information system, which is mandated by our state, so we don't have options with that, is the Ellucian colleague platform, which is a good platform, but of course it just has really one slice of the pie. It doesn't deal with the catalog, it doesn't deal with scheduling. So having something that integrated really well with the catalog, with the colleague platform, and in particular we use a version of the colleague platform that uses the Unidata database, and it's a little bit more difficult to find vendors that work with that. So we were very happy to see that Coursedog worked with both the SQL flavor of colleague as well as the Unidata.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and that's exactly what we hear from a lot of people in the market. Like, we're looking for something that is going to integrate into our SIS that we're using. It's going to give us more efficiency. It's more integrated. And so that seems key. Those seems like there are different features that existed there. So kind of what were the key features you think that stood out for Coursedog compared to the other demos that you maybe you went on during that time?
Well, there were a lot of features I think that we liked. One of the main aspects, I guess, is the fact that it did integrate. It had that two-way integration capability. Either one or two-way integration with our student information management system. For some of the components of integration, we did want to have that two-way integration so that the data, certain types of data, could flow, like course schedules could flow in, but other types of data, like our actual curriculum programs, that we were able to just do that as a one-way integration, so the data would flow out of the system. And then also, I guess, the challenges, I guess, around workflow management. So the processes that we have, both for scheduling and for curriculum management, are pretty hierarchical. There's a lot of folks involved, and we need to make sure that all of the folks weigh in, and that we have an audit trail, showing that they've done that part of that. So I think those were key aspects, I guess, of the integration, and then also the ability to work within the platform in a pretty nice UI interface and easy to use, to customize that workflow to meet our needs.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think we also talked a little bit about removing the need for an in-person paper process, I think during this time as well. And I think a lot of schools are talking about that. Like, how are we able to continue to think about business continuity and making sure that we have technologies or software that allow us to continue our processes, to your point, your workflows, and make sure that we're able to have that audit trail and not have a need for in-person.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the fact that this is all electronic, that is key, and that's something that faculty have been pretty much demanding. But also the data quality. I mean, that's going to go to making sure the data quality is there, because people are able, there's not one source of truth as opposed to many copies of paper floating around
everywhere, and not sure if it's in the right inbox or whose inbox it's in next. Yeah, I think that's one thing that we're all trying to, in this environment, especially, trying to solve and trying to think of ways to be going outside the box and having different processes or management of those workflows. When you looked at catalog, what were some of the major issues you were trying to kind of solve for specifically the catalog product?
Well, one of the top issues, I guess, would be accessibility. And that's something that, a lot of products provide, but surprisingly not all products provide that. So, in terms of accessibility, in this case, I'm talking specifically about, the Americans with Disabilities Act. So a platform that really leverages, just the HTML technology in a way that would allow screen readers and folks with disabilities to be able to view the catalog using a screen reader, be able to have the screen reader read it in a logical order. So, a lot of platforms, they'll use technology that's just incompatible. I don't think that there's a lot of modern vendors that use this technology, but like, for example, Flash or other, sort of proprietary technologies, and they don't really tell you that. So there might be certain components that are accessible, but then, big chunks of the catalog or whatever product it is are not. And, when we were doing our testing with the Coursedog platform, that we, found that it was very accessible. Another aspect that I guess would be the ability to create PDF output, a product, because even though everything is online, there are still folks that would like to have something printed out. And the way our marketing department and the folks that oversaw the catalog, were working with us, that was one of their concerns that they shared with us. Coursedog is one of the few vendors that developed that kind of one click and go sort of package up the site in an accessible PDF document that folks would be able to print or just share online as a PDF. Yeah, and I think this kind of goes without saying, but part of the reason again why we chose the catalog to go first was because we were doing a broader website redesign, and the look and feel of the Coursedog product, both from our perspective as administrators, using the UI to build out the catalog was very seamless and easy to use, but also from the front end point of view, it had that modern HTML5 type look,
right.
That really fit well with our website, and we were able to brand it so that they flow very well together.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that we've really focused on, which is how do we update this catalog without having to go through support tickets or through asking, going to the vendor themselves. If there's a change you want to make, a color you want to make look different, if there's a font you want to use, if there's a logo, all of that is very easily accessible inside of our catalog platform. So you can easily make those changes yourself in real time. That's one thing that we've had a lot of people mention as a really good big advantage of keeping the pace going and not having to put in these request changes and kind of wait till we're actually able to make those changes on their end, but making the changes ourselves as we see fit. And I think another one I think that was really interesting that we talked about too with the website redesign was we talked about deep links. Can you talk a little bit more about how the catalog helped with the deep links as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Integrating with the website, of course, the catalog stands on its own, so folks can kind of go in the front door and access the catalog that way. But with our website, part of anybody that's developed the website, that there's no one right way. That people want to be able to navigate multiple different ways. They want to kind of slice and dice and get to the data that they want to get to in different ways. So with deep links, what we're able to do is actually, in various areas of our website, we're able to link directly to specific programs, from certain parts of our website, so that way, folks that are visiting, maybe they're looking specifically, for example, at our at high school programs. So that in North Carolina here, we have a program called the Career and College Promise. It's not really, a degree program, but it's, a partnership with the high schools. So to present that in a flexible way, deep links allow us just on the website to point directly to that part of the catalog. And, as we mentioned before, since we're able to brand things really well together, folks will click that link. If they're paying attention and look at the URL, they'll notice that they're in a different place. But, from the look and feel, that deep link just jumps them to the right spot. And our marketing folks and the folks that are actually editing the web pages, they have flexibility in that they can link, just use those deep links as they need to on the website or, in other content. Like one of our departments kind of has their own, I guess, renegade site. So they're able to take advantage of that as well by using those deep links.
Yeah, that makes sense. Gotta love the renegade sites when they're out there sometimes.
I don't know if we gotta love them.
But it's good. I do think that deep link capability is really nice. And to your point, the branding and not feeling like you're really jumping to two different systems. I think that's really, we're thinking about the student experience and really what is that experience like for them. We don't want to confuse them. We want to make sure that they know they're in the right spot when they do make a click like that. So I think that's really a good call out and something I think is pretty unique to what we're doing. So I know we haven't gotten implemented with curriculum and class scheduling, but I know that you did take a look at it, and I'm kind of curious, what are you looking forward to with those two products?
Well, there's a lot of things, and I'll point out, all of these things, even though, we in IT have a big, hand in kind of orchestrating the demonstrations. When we were working with Coursedog, we were working with other vendors, and we did demonstrations, with the deans, chairs, and a good chunk of the faculty at our school. And I know a lot of larger schools, would have a similar process. So really the feedback, not only from me, but really from all the deans and the folks that they really appreciated about the scheduling platform was the ability to create rules around scheduling. So, uh, this, I don't know if other technologists have experienced this, but, sometimes there's, folks are looking for panaceas with technology. They're looking for some magic way to eliminate some process that they do, or to make it, fully automated. But when looking at scheduling, that was one of those areas where, when we really took a step back, and the deans and our, program instructors, they realized that, some of it's driven by, directly by the faculty, logical times for classes, but there are all these other factors and kind of rules, whether they're written down or not, that go into scheduling. Mentioning the high schools again, that's a good example. So classes that are in that Career and College Promise program, the classes that are basically offered to current high school students. The high schools have a pretty rigid bell system when students, get out between periods, and then there's, bus scheduling and things like that. So when we're working on the schedule, our current process with our current system, we don't really have any way to encode those rules, or to, have anything overarching that would enforce that, or remind people of those rules. So the Coursedog platform, that's built right in. So that what we could do on the, configuration end of that is set up these rules, and, we have coding and whatnot for classes that would indicate whether they're eligible or part of that high school program, or, another program. And then that way it would enforce those rules. So if a faculty member, submitted a schedule that fell outside of those rules, it could either reject or at least highlight that could be an issue. So it was a kind of a light touch, or a potential light touch way of guiding the scheduling, which I think, fit everybody's needs in that case. And I doubt that we're alone in that. It's where, really you have a whole bunch of rules, whether they're written or not, that are really going into the scheduling, and there's not really, some fully automated way to just schedule stuff without those rules. I guess kind of along the same lines would be workflows. And I know I mentioned that before, but the scheduling process, because it is so important and it is done, well ahead of time. We often do our schedule, almost a year in advance of the semester, again, because of our close partnerships with other colleges, for articulation, but also really with our local high schools. And we serve multiple counties, so we have multiple county school boards to work with our schedule. So we have to really work through that process ahead of time. And the workflows, the ability to kind of formally have a process where you route the scheduling through a faculty member, a program chair, and dean, and so on, and capture their approval on that really helps. And that makes sure that we're doing our due diligence to make sure that the scheduling is in place. Ultimately, I think all of those were probably those two elements maybe were more of the geeky aspects that, IT people were looking at, but I could tell you that the overall look of the product when the demo was done, is, again, that user interface is really modern looking and very clean. And the faculty and the deans, the folks that are actually using the system, they really love that. They liked, that it looked pretty simple. It was definitely less complex than our current platform, as far as for the folks that use that. And the fact that it bakes in the rules, and that all of it's electronic and it's visible, across the different groups. Everybody really loved that. And that was probably one of the biggest elements of feedback that we got from our faculty and deans directly.
Yeah, that's great. I think those workflows, a lot of people, we've actually had a question come in around the workflows. And I think that's something you're spot on. I think having those rules to enforce, those meeting rules that spoken or unspoken, today we have to, how we're communicating with them today. Today it's a lot of email back and forth, maybe phone calls. It's a very cumbersome process. And so this does allow us to kind of put these in place. And a lot of times potentially it flags the individual trying to submit it, and they realize, oh wait, I didn't mean to submit something that was outside of that rule, and they'll make adjustments prior to submitting it. So sometimes it just takes care of itself there. And then to Steve's point, if not, then it can go through a review process. Maybe if it's an exception request, it can go to the dean. And if they approve it, it then goes to the registrar, or whatever flow there might be that you have. But that is definitely I think one of the greatest advantages of it is getting that communication down, and kind of removing the need to kind of communicate in Excel sheets and through back and forth through emails. One of the questions that did come through from Vajra was, and I'm not sure if you've set up any workflows yet, Steve, but essentially the question was, the workflow with curriculum approval, were you able to do the customizations yourself, or did Coursedog customize this for you?
Well, that's a good question. We're in that process now. We're actually working on the data connector and just starting that process. But during the demo, that question actually came up. And during the demo, actually, we were brought live to the admin interface, because I think a dean actually had that question about that, or I'm sorry, it wasn't a dean, it was our Office for Instruction administrator. And they showed basically it's, essentially a drag and drop interface. As part of the implementation process, Coursedog is directly working with us and training and working with folks to develop that. But to be totally honest, because that process is so straightforward, it's essentially a drag and drop workflow process, kind of similar to more modern workflow process like with SharePoint, if anybody's familiar with using a SharePoint platform. So I guess the answer to that is I think it's something that an administrator could do at the configuration level, but it also is something that during the implementation process that the Coursedog implementation team is working with us on.
Yep, exactly. That's exactly what I would say as well. Vajra, and I got your other question here, Vajra, which is, we like our current catalog. Does the scheduling and curriculum approval work totally independently? And yes, those products can work. If you have a current catalog, you have a current curriculum piece, we can work together with them as long as it's connected to the SIS, because we'll connect to the SIS and pull the information out. As long as your catalog is doing the same thing, pulling information out of the SIS, we will be able to kind of put the information in there for them to pull. But we can definitely talk more about that. If you have questions, I'm happy to follow up with more. All right, so Steve, I think we just talked through some good things around curriculum and class scheduling, what we're looking forward to a little bit. I know curriculum started for the implementation, class scheduling is the last one, so I'm sure we're ready to get our hands on it. I think if we look at catalog, I think one of the questions that people might have today is kind of, how has the implementation process been? I know you brought it up and you started to talk about it there, so really can we kind of just expand upon that? I know we've had a couple different things like a tight deadline, et cetera, and some different ways we had to kind of get the catalog jump started. So I'd love to talk through those.
Yeah, well, so I normally, don't want to have things that have a tight deadline, but in this case, we did have a tight deadline. And I'll be honest, part of the reason why we had a tight deadline is because we were developing the website, and we, essentially did not think that we would have budget for, a fully online catalog product. So when it came to be that we did, we actually were able to find a product that we could afford with our budget, namely the Coursedog product. We wanted to get that implemented in time for the website launch, but also, again, going to that PDF output to replace, a printed catalog. We realized we had to get that out pretty quickly. So we worked with Coursedog and they were fantastic. We, put it up front that, hey, we have a tight deadline. I mean, really, I think it ended up being essentially a month and a half or a little under 2 months, from the issuance of the purchase to implementing it. And the Coursedog team really worked well with us. We were able to give them I guess the polite way to say this would be the raw data from our current catalog. I think the frank way to say it would be the ugly data from our current catalog, which was essentially a bunch of Microsoft Word files. And we provided that raw data with them, or to them. They did the initial, kind of heavy lift of populating the catalog. And actually, it really didn't involve much at all of our IT staff's work at that point. Our marketing department They went in after the fact. They used the admin interface to edit. They definitely had some training, but they're uh, not into the most high tech stuff, and they were able to do the tweaks and fine tune that within our deadline, and the catalog launched right alongside the new website. And there was a lot of compliments from folks seeing the new catalog once that went online with the new website. Actually, one of the comments was I had to explain to folks that actually the catalog product was not actually part of the website; that it was a separate, it was actually a separate product. Again, because that integration and the deep links, they kind of linked them so well together that folks kind of thought that was part of our new website directly.
That's a fun problem to have. I like to hear that. I hadn't heard that compliment last time we talked, and I think that's exactly what we're hoping to hear. That experience is so critical, I think. So how has it been? That's the process overall, but how's it been working with the team specifically? Have they been good in responses? How about talking through any issues that you might have worked through with them?
Yeah, they've always been very quick to respond, and I think that they anticipated. I mean, the things that we've run across so far, and I'll knock on wood here, but they've anticipated some of the issues. They've asked us the right questions. Like there was a particular case where we sent a table of data. I think in this case it was the course information where you have the number of credit hours, contact hours, et cetera. And we just weren't able to get that formatted correctly. And they worked with us and came up with a solution, pretty timely manner. So it's been really great to work with them. And I could say, and this is, maybe more for, if there are IT people on the call, but, what I really appreciated about it is that you can really, cut to the chase with technical talk, talking about, data formatting, getting to nitty gritty data, like, do you need this in UTF-8 format or ANSI? And really the team was able to answer technical questions. I didn't feel like I had to, kind of backtrack and kind of bring them up to speed on anything. And when I, was lacking in some of the knowledge at their end, they were able to explain it, in real, IT industry terms that I was able to understand. So it's been great so far to work with the team.
Awesome. Thank you. I think that's the majority of the prepared questions we had. I do have a question that just came in that I wanted to bring up as well. But just a reminder, if you have more questions, everybody in the audience, please feel free to submit them now. We'll work through the questions, and then once we're done with them, we will close down the session today. So this one's from Matthews. It looks like it says, what is the current implementation of increased class attendance and student to room ratio? I'm not sure. Does that make sense to you, Steve?
Yeah, well, I think that might be a broader question for Coursedog. I think what they're asking about is the scenario planning feature.
Got it.
As far as I know, I think that is implemented, but since we're not using the class scheduling product yet, but I'll let you speak to that.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that clarified it great for me. So yes, Scenario Planner is definitely something you can have in the product. And what it does is it allows you to run different scenarios, A, B, and C, for semesters to understand, okay, what's the right mix? If I want to increase the number of online classes, which then decreases the number of in-person, do I need to open more sections? Where are some of the other demand analytics I can look at from prior semesters to then predict kind of what section should be open? So it kind of gives you the ability to run different percentage scenarios and say, what is the right mix? And then based off that right mix, what are the recommendations to optimize my schedule to make it better and more efficient? So it's definitely something that we've implemented during this time to try and help with what's going on with COVID right now, and having an uncertainty of what kind of mix we should have for classes for high online versus in-person for the high flex model that we're seeing. Perfect. I did answer it, so that's perfect. Thank you, Steve. Any other questions that anyone might have today? And I've been taught by great academics, so I'll sit here patiently waiting. Hopefully awkwardly eventually. I always felt my professors did that in college. They would just sit there and look at you and you're like, okay, I guess we have to eventually ask a question here.
Well, I might have a off the cuff question to ask, I guess.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just so we've been, working with y'all for a little bit of time now. I think about a year, a little under a year. Um, I guess just in broad terms, how has Coursedog been growing? I guess have you seen an increase just overall, or?
Yeah, great question. So earlier this year, we did take on more funding and we continued to grow our company. We are seeing our client base continue to get larger and larger. So we're over 65 institutions now. I think we were at around maybe 30 or so when we first started working with you. And so we have seen that pick up. During this time, it has been a little bit slower of getting contracts signed. I think people, and rightfully so, we have larger issues in front of us that we need to be tackling. But there is still been a lot of interest. And I think once we get semester going, we should continue to see more individuals come on. What we're doing right now, I think to help with our future at Coursedog is we're trying to meet with customers more. I think we can build a lot of different things. I think one of the nice things about being here at a younger, like a startup type company like it is for Coursedog is our technology is very agile, very new, and can quickly be adjusted. So the scenario planner is a great example. We created that tool it took about 6 weeks to create that. We set all of our dev team on that time, or spent all of the dev team time on that, and we're able to put something out. And so instead of us just continuing to put out new features, what we decided is we need to go talk to the market. We need to go talk to customers and figure out what can actually help you right now. And so we've kind of pivoted away from being aggressive with our product more, and instead we're pivoting to understand why Coursedog now? Why can Coursedog help you in this moment? And what's lacking? What are the new maybe issues that you're seeing come up? And then we're planning to pivot to continue to add more features that address those. So it's been going well. I think it would be going better if we hadn't had COVID, of course, but I do think at the same time, it did give us a gut check to take a look at what we're doing and really start to commit to talking to customers and making sure that what they need and what their new issues or problems or pain points they're seeing are happening, that we're able to meet those for them. Vadra. Yeah, no problem. Vadra, for your question, do you have reports available that cover programs or courses that are in the approval process? And the answer to that is yes. So we do have the ability for you to have the insights into which courses or programs are out there, which ones aren't fully approved, what step they're in, so you know who's the bottleneck, if I may. All of that insight is definitely there. We also have what we call demand analytics, which allow you to also see section by section or department or however you break down your institution, and see where you have maybe overages or underutilization, where there's opportunities to optimize. So we have created a newer visual demand analytics functionality that also gives the ability for you to see visually where those holes are, which sometimes helps a little bit better than verbally. Let's see, do you have database access available that we can pull from and maybe add our SIS data to for more big data reports? I think we'd have to talk more about that one, Vadra. I'm not 100% on that, but I definitely think we could talk through it and come to a solution. I believe we do have the ability to push the data. We push the information back into the SIS, but I'm not sure if we'd be able to add on SIS data for the big data reports. So I'm happy to get an answer for you on that and follow up with you if that's okay. Matthew's here. Even though you are more focused on higher education, college and university, do you see the company specializing in different types of higher education, such as 2-year, 4-year graduate school and technical schools? That's a great question. So we've been kind of working with all of those different institution types. So we haven't seen a need to specialize just yet. We have found that our products seem to be in general a fit for most institutions that are out there. So we work with law schools, business schools, undergrad, et cetera. And we found that to work pretty well for us so far. I do believe that as we continue to grow and get a little bit bigger, there is a need to kind of specialize. I think there are differences from a decentralized and centralized workflow, how maybe a community college versus a 4-year public or research institution kind of approaches things. So we do see the advantage of kind of getting our product to the point that it can be a little bit more specialized for the institution type. But I think one thing that's important is sometimes if we don't want to go too far down the customization route, we do want to make sure we have a product that is giving you advice on best practices, that isn't going to like end up being a burden for you, and something that we just kind of customize, but then we have an inability to update. So I think really there's a lot of different things that we're trying to think through to make sure that we're keeping you, we're not trying to wait to give you the upgraded version to Coursedog. We want to keep you on the upgraded version all the time, which then kind of results in less customization to help that be more scalable. So I do think there'll be some additional advancements that'll be feature related, but I don't think we'll ever go into like specific products just for each institution type. I hope that helped answer the question. All right, any other questions here? Oh yes, thank you. Got it. So he says, thank you. Also, especially since you have software like Ellucian and Oracle and Salesforce, how do you see yourself set apart? So we currently integrate with the SIS systems. We don't see ourselves as like a direct competitor to those. What we do instead is we just add on functionality. It's like an add-on to the SIS that is either missing, lacking, or maybe underloved by the SIS. So that's where we really see ourselves as more of a tack on. And I think what we'll do is we'll continue to build different modules that maybe can support the SIS that you're using and add on more functionality, just like we're doing the scheduler, catalog, et cetera, taking what's there as the foundation and then building upon it. I think as we continue to grow, there could definitely be an opportunity to see us being more of a competitor to the SIS world. But at this point in time, we don't view it that way. We just kind of view us as working together. And that's why we put a lot of time into making sure we integrate with Ellucian, Banner, and Colleague, of course, PeopleSoft, all Genzabar, all the major ones that we can, we are integrating with. And so that will be our main strategy moving forward, so we can bring our product and help as many individuals and institutions as we can. No problem, Matthew. Let's see, Vadra, the database access would be data that does not sync with our SIS, that does not sync with our SIS, such as programs that did not make it through the approval process. Do you save and allow access to the voting or comment data? Yes. So Vadra, I think it's best if we follow up. I think these questions are very good questions. I don't want to tell you anything wrong. They're getting it's a little more technical than I know, unfortunately. So what I'd like to do is, if you don't mind, I'll reach out to you after this and set up some time for you to talk to one of our solutions engineers, and they can talk through these questions and I think give you the answers you're looking for and kind of make sure that it has everything that you need. Okay. That was fun, a flurry of questions. I really appreciate that. We sometimes don't get many questions at all, so I really do appreciate everyone's involvement today, and Steve, for your time. I think you brought a lot of good information. I think you brought it from a different perspective than we've heard of so far, and I'm really looking forward to implementing the rest of the products with you and hearing more about how you feel about them, whether good or bad, and how we can continue to work together.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. You have a great rest of the day and a great weekend.
Yeah, thank you.